Hey folks, this is Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge. Hopefully this will come out on Friday. Fixed Blade Friday. We've got the Morakniv Garberg. The Morakniv Garberg has been out for a few years now. And recently, I think it's just less than a year, right around a year, they put out the carbon steel version. So the carbon steel version is identical in terms of size, basically the weight, very, very close. And options like either the sheath or this multi-point compatible sheath system. And they're the same knife, basically, other than being stainless steel 14C28N, Sandvik steel, or a slightly tweaked 1095 for Mora on the carbon steel. And the carbon steel has been treated so that it's got sort of like a forced patina. It looks really, really sharp. It looks really, really nice. You've got everything else about the knife is identical. We've got a full tang coming out the end of the handle here, 1/8 inch thick. That's what, 3 1/3 millimeters roughly. I'll get the exact specs later on. And it stays the same thickness all the way up, unlike the Kansbo that I reviewed over a year ago, where it gets thinner near the tip. And it's for a more delicate kind of job thing. This is a robust, this will do everything that you really need done if you're stuck out in the woods. Of course, there's no one knife that does everything great, but this does most things very well, and it does a number of things excellently. So without further ado, let's put this thing on the tabletop and get a good close look at it, coming at you right now. So here's a look at the sheath, how I often carry it, especially in an urban area. I tuck the sheath into my pocket and it's sitting there like that. So very easy to still get at everything. No problem at all. Generally though, it's going to be like this, outside of the pocket. Big generous loop here, so it can be moved back and forth between belt loops very easily. It just hangs there and it's easy to use, and it's such a comfortable leather sheath. Very, very well made, and you know, it feels really good in the hand, and it's good quality leather and a nice snap. The first thing we want to look at is the sheath here, and I've used this sheath for a while, so it's a little bit banged up now, as it should be, and you know, dried out to our Albertan environment. I'm going to need to wipe it down again, lubricate it a little bit, condition it, use some leather conditioner, because this is a good sheath and I want to take good care of it. You've got really nice thick stitching. You've got proper rivets right there to rivet it together, proper rivets to put the belt loop on, and a really nice snap to snap it closed when it's closed. It's just a very well built knife sheath of a really good grade leather, and just done really well. Like, all the edges are cleaned up very well, and you can certainly get a whole lot worse sheaths out there. It's going to be very, very common. But for the price of this knife, it's not going to be that common to get a better sheath. That's going to be a little bit hard to do at this price point. If you want to know about the MOLLE compatible option for the sheathing option, check out my video on the Kansbo. I'll put that up in this corner at the very end of this video, and you can click on that and watch that video if you're interested, because the MOLLE compatible sheath system is identical to this sheath system. So there you go. That tells you about those things. So let's put that aside and take a closer look at just the knife itself. We've got a full tang that goes all the way through to the end, and very, very clearly all the way through to the end. You've got a nice 90-degree corners on here, quite sharp. You can use this end to strike your ferro rod if you want to. You know, if you don't want to do it up here on the spine's a nice 90-degree spine. It strikes ferro rods beautifully. And oh, I should record a demo of that too. So here I've got a new ferrocerium rod. It's a pretty cheap one, and I haven't scraped it off yet, so it might take a few scrapes to get the coating off first. There you go. So clearly you can see all that smoke coming up too. This thing can strike a ferro rod, and look at very little residue built up. easy to wipe off. And you can do the same thing with the back. You can throw sparks. Ooh, you know, with that sharp edge there, it's no problem to throw some sparks as well. Ooh, always fun, but that's enough inside. Oops. And you can use this end here doing the same thing, or you can use it to crush things. You know, they've really polished up the end of that sheath. They've really polished up the butt of this blade, the handle and everything very well. You can see how reflective that is. It's quite well made. And lanyard hole, for those people that still want to use lanyards, works quite well. And then you've got TPE, which is a really just mildly soft or just slightly soft or rubbery plastic on top of a poly and a polypropylene, which means that this handle is very comfortable in the hand. They've been making Moras for so long, they know the proportions of the swell in here and then the swell in here. That's comfortable for most people. So almost everybody is going to find this knife very, very comfortable in hand. You don't have much of a guard in the front here, and that's because this is not a style of knife that's designed for puncturing, although you certainly can if you need to, and it's got a very strong, stout tip. I can give you a nice close-up shot of the tip of this knife. So it's just the full 1/8 all the way along, and then you've got this Scandinavian grind on here. And then you've got another micro bevel right across the edge. Now, there's a number of people who have videos out that say this has got one of those 0-degree bevels. And what they mean by that, that means that this Scandinavian grind goes right to the edge, no other grinding done at all. And no, that's not how it is from the factory. You can do that if you want to. And some purists think that that's how a Scandinavian grind must be. But Mora has added a micro bevel all the way along. You can see it really clearly when they do it, when you take a close-up picture of the end right here. And when you take a close-up picture of the tip of the blade, because that part of the grind's been done by hand. The main Scandinavian grind is done with machines. You know, the blade is bolted in and they grind that off. That's why it's got such perfect lines on there. And then you've got the hand-done stuff down there. So it's a knife that's very, very comfortable. Every which way you want to hold this, you know, if you want to do pull cuts using a lot of strength, or, you know, other cuts that you want to do, all kinds of bushcraft movements and things. Nice strong tip if you need to be digging into something. It's a very, very well-designed knife. You've got a clip point. There's the transition point right there. And it comes down just a little bit. It's just a slight clip. It's a good knife. Are you guys ready for all the specs and the measurements and everything? We've got a cutting edge, tip to where the cutting edge terminates here, the micro bevel, 10.16 centimeters, 4 inches on the nose. The blade length, so tip to the closest spot on the handle here, 10.66 centimeters, 4.2 inches. The blade thickness is 3.22 millimeters. That's 0.127 inches, so very close to 1/8 of an inch. Actually, it's slightly over, I think, if I remember correctly. And the blade depth, this way right here, is 2.37 centimeters. That's 0.932, almost an inch up and down the knife here. Now, the thickness of the edge behind the grind, it's very minuscule because it's almost impossible to measure this micro bevel, so I don't have that number for you. Grind angle. Well, the main bevel of this Scandi grind is 13.5 degrees on each side. And then the micro bevel, it's just too hard to measure that with the equipment I have, but it's greater than 13 degrees. So we got 13.5 degrees on the main grind, and then the micro bevel, let's see if I can do it with show you with my fingers like that. So if this is the main Scandi grind, then you've got another angle right there for the tip, kind of like that. And my estimate on there is that it's around 22, 21 degrees, but it's a little more variable because that's the human hand that does that. So basically you've got a knife edge that's very much like most knives, you get right around 20 degrees, and that's what keeps this edge in good shape for long, long use. If you'd keep it at 13.5 degrees per side, you'd find that this edge would chip a whole lot more easily than it does with that little bit of a micro bevel on the right by the tip of the blade. So that's to make it stronger. Still, when you sharpen this knife, you can't just sharpen that micro bevel. You might get away with it once. You can maybe get away with it twice. But after a while, you're going to be making it so stout that you're going to flatten out the top of the knife. Not literally making it 90 degrees to the rest of the knife, but you know what I mean. It's going to become too great of a degree right at the tip of the knife for it to become effective. And you'll have to take this 13.5 degrees down a little bit so that you can expose a new cutting edge. I'm rambling on. Back to the dimensions here. Handle time. The handle length, and I'm talking about the polymer only right now, not the steel sticking out the back of the end. 11.8 centimeters, 4.65 inches. The handle thickness this way, 2.29 centimeters, that's 0.9 of an inch. The handle depth right at the middle here where it's greatest, 3.44 centimeters, 1.35 inches. The grip area right between these two bolsters, 10.15 centimeters, 4 inches. The total length of this knife from tip to the very end of the handle, 22.8 centimeters, 8.98 inches, so 9 inches. We've got a 9-inch knife, 4-inch hand blade, and 5-inch handle, roughly speaking. And the sharpness of this thing, the factory sharpness on the edge right here to push it through that monofilament that I used to test with, 110. That's awesome. They really did a good job making this thing super sharp at the Mora factory. The weight of this knife, it is 171 grams, 6.05 ounces, so a 6-ounce knife. And with this leather sheath system, 279 grams, 9.85 ounces. So this is 3.85 ounces or 3.8 ounces for the sheath. So altogether, under 10 ounces for this whole system. Not bad at all for what you get. It's a good solution, especially with this full tang in here. Let's put that aside up here again. So, how much does this knife cost? Well, it's not cheap. A lot of people, they think Mora and they go, oh, Moras, they're 15, 17 bucks, maybe Canadian, $12, $15 American. Why does this thing cost as much as it does? Well, that is because those other Mora knives are made 99% with machines from start to finish. It just goes through a system and they're made. They can save an awful lot of money and they pass those savings on to you. Whereas their premium knives, like the Garberg and their Cansbowl and even the little Eldris, these knives take a little bit more work by some handwork, and that's labor costs, and so the price goes up. I bought mine from Mastrop along with a 511 together. And in hindsight, I didn't get that great of a deal. I didn't get ripped off at all. I got a little better deal than most places, but not by much, like only by about 3 or 4%. So I didn't really get a super deal on Mastrop. By the way, if you're not a Mastrop member and you want to become one, use my link down below, and then be careful when you shop, because probably a little over half the time you can get really good deals. Small percentage of the time you get okay deals, and then another small percentage of the time it's costing you more than other places. So you do have to be careful when you're shopping at Mastrop. And I'm talking specifically about knives and flashlights mostly, because that's what I check out most there. How much does this cost right now? Well, I've got some links for Amazon. Amazon seems to have the best prices, at least for North America, maybe for other places as well. They're within, 2 or 3% of all the other places. And if you use my links to buy, I do get a little bit of a commission from Amazon. So the Canadian price for this, with the Moly compatible multi-sheath system, so not this leather, $109.82. With the leather sheath, it's $122.81 Canadian. In the United States, with the Moly sheath, it's $70 even. With the leather, it's $78.75 US. Is it worth that much? Well, I think so. Other knives that have as good a stainless steel, this is 14C28N Sandvik steel. It's a really good steel. Some people are calling it a premium steel. I call it a mid-grade steel. 14C28N is usually around 59 Rockwell hardness, sometimes a little bit higher, sometimes a tiny bit lower. It all depends on how tough they want to make the edge. But it's a good, durable, hard-working steel, and the fit and finish on this thing is simply awesome, especially with this leather work considered as well. I think it's worth the price that they're charging for it. But if you can't get past looking at, what a 511 next to this, then you're not going to want to get this. So you have to be a person that recognizes what this is for what it is, and don't compare it to their other products because they're made in a different way. So special features, well, I really like this sharp edge back here. So you can do a lot of different things with the end of the handle here. So I like the steel pommel coming out. I like having a pommel anyways for crushing things, but this does even more tasks, so that's kind of good. Nice and strong tip on this blade, very durable. You can baton things with this, no problem, all day long. But I'm not one of those crazy batoners. I baton something that's less than half the length of the blade. I don't go through anything that's thicker than that. Pros and cons, very comfortable in hand. Like I mentioned, this handle is awesome. The full tang, square end, awesome. Square spine, awesome. The lanyard option's really good. A lot of people love lanyards on their bushcraft style knives. No, this is not a skinning knife for an animal. The edge gets thick too quickly. But you could take care of small animals like birds and rodent size animals. But that's about it. For other things, you probably want to get something like the cans bowl that gets nice and thin near the tip here. Very durable. That's another pro. Leather sheath, I really like that. That's awesome. I like the molly sheath as well. It just depends on what you want to do. And it's good weight for the size. You're not wasting a lot of weight for no good reason. It's a really good knife. I don't think they've got the Garberg on as a blank system, like a handleless system where you can just buy their blanks. A lot of the knives that Mora makes, not a lot, some of the knives that Mora makes, you can just get the blanks for them and do your own handles. There's a lot of YouTube videos where people put handles on Mora knives, put their own handles on, so you can see how that's done if you want to, and buy some of their blank systems that way. But I don't think their premium systems come that way, at least not yet. The cons? Sorry, I don't have any cons here. I just don't. There's nothing that I can say I truly dislike about this knife. I do like sharpness choils. I wish this one maybe had one, but not a big deal. For what it is, it's great. Do I like full flat grind knives? Yes, I do, but sometimes this kind of grind is what you want. So for what it is, I think it's just simply awesome. So if you're looking for this, you've got my endorsement anyways. Check out some other videos on them and see what other people say about them, just so that you get a wider perspective. Actually, I say that about everything. Don't just take my reviews as, that last word on these knives. Check around and see what other people think as well. So what do you think of this Mora? Do you have one? Are you interested in getting one? This is probably the only knife that I'm going to be reviewing in March that I won't be giving away on the Patreon giveaway. I bought this back in November before I came up with that, and with your help, with that number of $50 for budget knives. So this is one of those occasional reviews that costs, where the item costs more than that $50. I think it's worth it. So that's all I have to say about this thing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, everybody, cut towards your chum, not your thumb.